A young woman leaves everything behind for love, only to find herself entangled in a nightmare that ends in tragedy. Her story begins in the town of Vernon, British Columbia, surrounded by mountains and lakes, where 19-year-old Ashley Wadsworth grew up. Known for her vibrant energy, adventurous spirit, and deep love for her family, Ashley had a whole life ahead of her. But when love called from across the ocean, Ashley answered. In November 2021, Ashley packed her bags and boarded a flight to Chelmsford, England. She was filled with excitement and hope, ready to start a new chapter with Jack Sepple, a man she had met online when she was just 12 years old. Their connection, built over 7 years of intermittent chats and video calls, had grown into what Ashley believed was love. Within months, however, that dream unraveled into a living nightmare. On February 1, 2022, police forced their way into a small flat on Tennyson Road. Inside, they found Jack Sepple calmly sitting on the bed, next to Ashley's lifeless body. She had been brutally murdered, her body bearing 90 wounds inflicted by the man she had crossed an ocean to be with. How did this happen? How does an online love story become a horrifying crime? This is the story of Ashley Wadsworth. Ashley Wadsworth was a spirited young woman whose zest for life was contagious. She loved horse riding, skiing, and spending time outdoors. At 18, she embraced her faith, joining the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a decision that brought her a sense of purpose. Her family described her as the backbone of their tight-knit unit, a bright, courageous presence who loved fiercely and lived passionately. When Ashley met Jack Sepple online, she was just a child. Their long-distance friendship grew over the years, and Ashley spoke fondly of Jack to her family. To them, he was the boy from England who made Ashley's eyes light up whenever they spoke on FaceTime. But behind his charming facade, Jack Sepple had a dark history that later came to light, a history of violence and control that Ashley's family could never have imagined. In November 2021, Ashley decided it was time to meet Jack in person. She obtained a tourist visa and boarded a plane to Chelmsford, England. For her, this was a leap of faith, a chance to start a life with someone she believed she loved. Her family had reservations, but Ashley was determined. As her mother, Christy Gendron, later said, she was a Leo. Once she made up her mind, there was no stopping her. Have you or someone you know ever taken a leap of faith like Ashley, moving far away to be with someone they love? Chelmsford, Essex, is a city just 30 miles northeast of London. For Ashley, the small flat on Tennyson Road where she lived with Jack quickly became a prison. As the days turned into weeks, Ashley's messages to her family began to reflect growing concerns about Jack's behavior. He was controlling, volatile, and prone to violent outbursts. Despite her unease, Ashley stayed. She had grown up comparing every boy she met to Jack, believing he was the standard of love. But as his controlling behavior escalated, Ashley reached out to friends at her church in Chelmsford. On February 1st, 2 days before her planned flight back to Canada, she sent a message to them saying it was an emergency and that she needed help. By the afternoon, additional messages, sent from Ashley's account but written by Jack, claimed everything was fine. Friends who visited the flat found no answer at the door and called the police. What they discovered inside shocked the world. This story isn't just about Ashley's tragic end, it's about the missed warning signs, the consequences of unchecked violence, and the lessons we must learn to protect others from similar fates. What would you do if a loved one expressed doubts about their safety in a relationship? Would you intervene? Ashley Wadsworth was known for her adventurous spirit and love for life. Growing up in Vernon, British Columbia, she spent much of her time outdoors, enjoying activities like skiing and boating. At the age of 18, she had a profound religious experience, which she described as her God moment, leading her to join the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Her faith became a significant part of her life, giving her a sense of purpose and community. Her family described her as the glue that held them together. She was deeply loved by her parents, Christy Gendron and Ken Wadsworth, as well as her older sister Haley and her niece Paisley. Ashley was excited about her future, full of dreams and aspirations, which made her decision to move to the UK all the more significant. Her excitement about reuniting with Jack Sepple was evident, as she saw it as an opportunity to build the life she had envisioned. Jack Sepple entered Ashley's life when she was just 12 years old. They connected online, and their bond grew over the years through messages and video calls. While Ashley saw him as her first love, Jack's past painted a different picture. He had a history of troubling behavior, including harassment and violence. Records revealed prior charges of online harassment, breaching restraining orders, and assault. His controlling and manipulative tendencies were well documented but remained hidden from Ashley's family. By the time Ashley moved to Chelmsford to be with him, Jack's darker side began to surface. His history of coercive and controlling behavior became evident as he isolated Ashley and imposed his will on her. For Ashley, who had spent years idealizing Jack, these red flags were overshadowed by her hope and determination to make their relationship work. Ashley arrived in Chelmsford in November 2021, filled with hope and excitement about starting her new life with Jack. Initially, her messages to her family reflected her happiness, but soon, cracks began to appear. By January, Ashley confided in friends and family that Jack's behavior had become controlling and abusive. She shared how he monitored her activities and lashed out in fits of anger. On the morning of February 1, 2022, neighbors reported hearing screams coming from the flat. One neighbor recalled Ashley knocking on her door in distress, saying Jack had beaten her and thrown their kitten against the wall. Ashley's fear was palpable as she told the neighbor she believed Jack was going to kill her. Despite the neighbor's intervention, Ashley returned to the flat, where Jack appeared calm and apologetic. What do you think drove Ashley to stay despite the warning signs? Could it have been love, fear, or something else? Hours later, Ashley sent urgent messages to her church friends in Chelmsford, pleading for help. Shortly after, new messages, sent from her account but written by Jack, claimed that everything was fine. Suspicious, her friends visited the flat but received no response. They immediately contacted the police. When officers arrived, they forced entry into the flat at around 4 p.m. Inside, they found Jack sitting calmly on the bed, next to Ashley's lifeless body. She had been strangled and stabbed multiple times. Jack was on a FaceTime call with his sister, showing her the horrific scene. The police quickly secured the scene and arrested Jack Sepple. Investigators later revealed that Ashley's body bore 90 wounds, evidence of a brutal and frenzied attack. Her death was ruled as caused by stab wounds to the chest and strangulation. Jack admitted to the killing almost immediately, stating, "I went psychotic. I'm sorry." The role of Ashley's church friends in alerting authorities was critical. They acted swiftly when they sensed something was wrong, ensuring that police arrived in time to apprehend Jack before he could attempt to flee. The image of Jack casually sitting beside Ashley's body, showing it over FaceTime, left officers and the community horrified. The investigation into Ashley's murder revealed a horrifying scene. Her body bore 90 separate wounds, including multiple stab injuries to her chest and defensive wounds on her hands and arms. The severity of her injuries painted a clear picture of a frenzied attack. Forensic evidence showed signs of strangulation, indicating a brutal escalation of violence during the incident. As the investigation unfolded, Jack Sepple's history of violent and controlling behavior came to light. He had previously been charged with harassing an ex-girlfriend, persistently contacting her despite a restraining order. In another instance, he physically assaulted a partner during an argument, leaving her with visible injuries. Reports also revealed a pattern of coercive and manipulative behavior, where he isolated his partners from their friends and family, exerting control over their lives. These troubling incidents painted a picture of a man with a deeply ingrained tendency toward abusive relationships, all of which culminated in the tragic death of Ashley Wadsworth. He had a documented pattern of abusive conduct, including harassment, coercive behavior, and physical violence toward former partners. In one instance, he was charged with breaching a restraining order after persistently contacting an ex-girlfriend who had ended their relationship. A non-conviction restraining order was previously issued against him, barring him from contacting another former partner. However, no effective measures were in place to prevent him from continuing his pattern of abuse. The failure to hold him accountable for these earlier incidents allowed his behavior to escalate unchecked, culminating in Ashley's tragic death. Do you think people with a history of violence should face stricter legal consequences, even if no conviction occurs? While the case against Jack Sepple was straightforward due to his confession and overwhelming evidence, questions remain about how his behavior went unnoticed or unaddressed for so long. Those close to Ashley later reflected on warning signs, including his controlling tendencies and volatile temper, which she had mentioned in conversations with friends and family. Some speculate that Ashley's optimism and belief in Jack's potential overshadowed her concerns. For years, she had compared other romantic interests to him, idealizing their bond. However, Jack's pattern of isolating Ashley and manipulating her emotions should have raised significant red flags. How can communities better support victims of domestic violence before it escalates? The murder of Ashley Wadsworth shocked both her hometown in Canada and the community in Chelmsford. In Vernon, her family and friends held vigils, remembering her as a bright, adventurous young woman whose life was tragically cut short. In the UK, the case reignited conversations about the dangers of domestic abuse and the importance of recognizing early warning signs in relationships. Media coverage focused heavily on the modern-day aspects of Ashley and Jack's relationship. Journalists often highlighted how their connection, which began in their teenage years through online platforms, reflected broader concerns about the potential dangers of forming long-distance, virtual relationships. While some outlets framed the story as a cautionary tale about online romance, others delved into societal failures, questioning why early warnings about Sepple's abusive tendencies were overlooked. This narrative influenced public perception, drawing attention to the vulnerabilities of young individuals entering such relationships without adequate safeguards or awareness. The fact that they met online as pre-teens and maintained a long-distance connection for years added a layer of complexity to the narrative. Many outlets emphasized the risks of online relationships, particularly for young and vulnerable individuals. The case also drew attention to systemic failures in addressing domestic violence. Advocacy groups highlighted the need for stricter enforcement of restraining orders and better support systems for victims. Recommendations included mandatory follow-ups by law enforcement for individuals known to have breached restraining orders and more robust intervention programs to monitor high-risk offenders. Groups also emphasized the importance of education campaigns to help individuals recognize signs of coercive control and abuse early on. They advocated for better funding of shelters and counseling services, ensuring that victims have access to safe spaces and psychological support. Additionally, some proposed integrating domestic violence awareness into school curriculums to foster early understanding and prevention. What lessons can society learn from this case to better protect vulnerable individuals? Ashley's story serves as a tragic reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked violence and control. It underscores the importance of vigilance, intervention, and education to prevent similar tragedies from occurring. In the days following his arrest, Jack Sepple admitted to the murder of Ashley Wadsworth. He described his actions as psychotic, claiming he lost control during a heated argument. This explanation, however, did little to mitigate the overwhelming evidence of premeditation and the brutality of the crime. The court heard details of the attack, including how Sepple strangled Ashley before inflicting multiple stab wounds. During the sentencing at Chelmsford Crown Court, the judge condemned Sepple's actions as a brutal and cowardly attack. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 23 years and 6 months. The sentencing brought some measure of justice to Ashley's grieving family, but it could not undo the pain and loss they endured. In the courtroom, Ashley's parents, Christy Gendron and Ken Wadsworth, addressed Sepple directly. Christy spoke of the heartbreak of losing her daughter, describing Ashley as the backbone of our family. Ken expressed his anguish, saying, "You need to know and accept the brutality of what you've done and the never-ending pain you've caused my family." Ashley's parents traveled to the UK to handle the aftermath of her death, including the heartbreaking task of bringing her body home. Christy recalled the shock and disbelief she felt upon learning of her daughter's murder, describing how her knees gave way when she received the call. Ken spoke of the chest pains he experienced in the weeks following Ashley's death, which doctors attributed to heartache. In the months after the tragedy, the family focused on honoring Ashley's memory. They reflected on her adventurous spirit, her unwavering faith, and the joy she brought to their lives. Christy described Ashley as a bubblegum candy kid who was fearless and full of love. The family also used their platform to raise awareness about domestic violence. Christy urged others to act if they suspected a loved one was in danger, saying, "If something doesn't feel right, intervene. Don't wait." What are some red flags you think people should watch for in a relationship? Ashley's murder raises troubling questions about systemic failures. Could more have been done to protect her? Why were previous reports of Sepple's abusive behavior not taken more seriously? Advocacy groups have called for stronger enforcement of restraining orders and more robust support for victims of domestic abuse. The tragedy also highlights the importance of educating young people about recognizing warning signs in relationships. Ashley's family hopes her story will serve as a wake-up call for others, encouraging them to prioritize safety and seek help when faced with controlling or abusive partners. Ashley Wadsworth's story is a poignant reminder of the dangers of unchecked violence and the enduring impact of domestic abuse. Her legacy lives on through the lessons we must learn to protect others from similar tragedies. Jack Sepple is currently serving a life sentence for the murder of Ashley Wadsworth. Sentenced to a minimum of 23 years and 6 months, he remains in prison, where he will likely spend decades reflecting on his actions. For Ashley's family, the sentence provided a measure of justice, but it could never replace the vibrant life that was lost. Ashley's parents, Christy Gendron and Ken Wadsworth, have channeled their grief into advocacy. They are dedicated to raising awareness about abusive relationships and urging others to act when they see warning signs. The family has spoken out about the importance of recognizing patterns of coercion and control, emphasizing that intervention can save lives. Through public speaking, media interviews, and online campaigns, they are working to ensure Ashley's story serves as a wake-up call for others. Ashley's story is a tragic reminder that abuse often begins subtly, escalating over time until it becomes life-threatening. Her mother, Christy, offers a powerful piece of advice. If something doesn't feel right, act. Intervene. Trust your instincts. Ashley confided in friends and family about her concerns, but those around her couldn't have anticipated how far Jack Sepple's violent tendencies would go. This case underscores the importance of listening closely when loved ones express fear or discomfort in a relationship. It also highlights the need for better education on the red flags of abuse, including isolation, manipulation, and controlling behavior. It's vital to educate ourselves and others about recognizing the warning signs of abusive relationships. Support organizations that help victims of domestic violence, such as local shelters, counseling centers, and crisis hotlines. Share resources and information with your community, especially younger individuals who may be entering relationships for the first time. If you or someone you know is in a potentially dangerous relationship, don't wait to act. Call a local domestic violence hotline, reach out to a trusted friend, or consult a professional. Intervention can save lives. Ashley's story is a heartbreaking example of how love can turn dangerous. Her life, though tragically cut short, serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of vigilance, intervention, and education. Let's honor her memory by working together to prevent such tragedies. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more true crime documentaries.